Hello everyone, this is Shannon from That's So Poe, and today I am doing week 35 of my 2019 reads. This week I read 3 very short things that were all really amazing. So the first book that I finished this week was something from my TBR from August, focusing on Jewish and Muslim heritage, which I will link below. It was called Night by Elie Wiesel, and this is a Holocaust memoir. So Elie Wiesel was a young teenager when the Holocaust occurred, and this follows him in a little bit of time before the Holocaust, before he was taken to a concentration camp, and then through his time in the concentration camp. And it is just so powerful, but also so heart-wrenching. I mean, I just cried throughout this book because just watching this really sensitive, sweet young kid go through that kind of trauma and really not just see the atrocities of the Holocaust and experience them, but even more importantly, just completely lose his faith in God, his faith in humanity, and importantly, his faith in himself. The situation that he was placed in was so extreme that need for survival, that kind of very basic instinct, really demanded that he give up a lot of who he was as a person just to survive. And that was really, really heartbreaking to read that experience from him. And I think also very important. I think it's very important to understand the ways that trauma affects people, to understand how dehumanizing others can create situations where these kinds of atrocities can occur. And I mean, this is just one of the most important lessons to be learned in history. And it's kind of important that we understand what happened and understand kind of how that affected people. So I feel like this is a must-read book. It is a classic, although I haven't heard so many people talk about it, so I wonder if it was something that has been a little bit forgotten. I don't think it should be. I think it is a really, really amazing read. I gave it 5 stars, and I think that if I get the chance, I would like to think on it more and do a standalone review for this, because there were some really powerful messages in this book, beyond just the general idea of trauma and the Holocaust, that I would like to share and kind of expand upon. The other 2 books that I finished this week were Nightlights and Hicotea by Lorena Alvarez. These were books from my September TBR, which I will link below, focusing on Latinx and Hispanic heritage. And these are written by a Colombian author, and I think that just like Night, they really affected me. They really spoke to kind of me emotionally. Both of these have a very fantastical quality. They're magical realism stories about a little girl, Sandy, who goes on these kind of magical adventures, but they're not always like safe and happy magical adventures. There's something darker, something deeper. And the artwork in this is truly stunning in both books. Nightlights has a little bit more of a kind of a blacks type of color palette, whereas Hicotea has a little bit more of slightly more, I don't know, muted pastels. And both of them have really, really fantastic art. So I'm gonna put up a couple pictures for you guys to see. The storyline in each of these is a little different. So in Nightlights, Sandy catches the lights of the stars and she puts them into drawings and sort of has these friends and fantastical adventures with them. And then this new girl appears at school, and this new girl praises her drawings, but also seems to have ulterior motives. And I think that this story really is almost like a fever dream. It's not always completely linear in the way that it plays out, but I feel like it's an allegory for Alvarez's experience as an artist, her journey as an artist, where Sandy has to struggle with her desire to draw versus everybody telling her you need to focus in school, you need to do homework. And I feel like that really represents the idea of, you know, practical job searches versus becoming an artist. And then the new girl, I think in many ways represents sort of the publishing industry. This, you know, praising you for your work, but also having ulterior motives. And I got a lot out of this story somehow. I really connected to it. Hicotea is another adventure of Sandy, although it's disconnected from the first. In this one, she goes on a school trip to a marsh and there discovers a turtle, Hicotea, who is sort of like a curator of the world. She has all these drawings of it. And she is losing the drawings of the marsh because it is disappearing, and Sandy has to go on an adventure to kind of figure out what is making the marsh disappear. This one, as in a lot of things recently, has strong ecological themes, but it also has a lot of themes of, you know, what we buy into, what we consent to, and what we question and try to change. And so there's a lot in here about kind of activism, I think, as well. Also, another additional thing that I noticed about this was that Hicotea is the turtle, and she is sort of in charge of drawing all of these things, and Sandy sort of falls into Hicotea's world. I think this is really similar in a lot of ways to the myth, the creation myth of the turtle with the, you know, the earth on its back. I went and I looked up this myth, and it follows a lot of the same kind of points and also has some of the same animal characters in it. So I will link that story below so that you can see that as well, because I wouldn't be surprised if it was influenced by that idea of the creation turtle. But again, I just got a lot out of both of these stories. Even though they are kids' books, I just really loved them, and I read a lot into them clearly, and also just adored the art. So that wraps up week 35 for me. If anybody else has read any of these books, please let me know what your thoughts are below. Also, if you've read anything else great this week, let me know what you've been reading. I am still in the middle of a couple of books from August that I really do want to finish, so I'll probably be working on those this week, but I'm also trying to get a start on my September reading because I have so much on my TBR. So I'll be kind of wrapping the previous ones up and continuing with trying to read as much as I can for September, because I'm just really excited about all those books. Hope everybody else is getting off to a good start.